Basically, Merrick the Assassin is the closest thing to John Wick having an existential crisis. Men of violence have scars and they leave scars. And Merrick the Assassin eschews mindless violence for a deeper examination into how violence, affects the perpetrator of it and the innocent. And when I wrote Merrick, I thought about all the things in, the classic genre of hitmen, of hitmen sagas and anti-heroes that influenced me. And the one thing that I noticed is even those with stories that were good stories, I noticed that the violence took center stage. And when the violence takes center stage, what happens is sometimes people forget the message. I can't tell you the number of people John Wick killed, and some of them have histories and some of them don't. The interesting thing about Merrick is that every single person that dies in the movie, the way that we want to present it is, we've created a wiki to where each one of those people has a story. They have a history. They were a mother. They were a father. They were all these different things. And we want to show that interconnectivity that, despite being, a person with a bullet in them and no longer being around, they're not just, their saga wasn't being a lifeless corpse. That might have been their ultimate fate. But who they were as people. Some of these, were villains. Some of these were just innocent bystanders, but they were all swept away in the same stroke of violence. That's Merrick. And I liken him a lot. The character of Merrick is like a tornado. And what do we know about tornadoes? Those people who are from Oklahoma can tell you about how strange tornadoes are. They sweep through an environment. Sometimes they take out an entire half of a neighborhood, but they leave the other half intact. And you can't quite tell sometimes which half is going to be left intact. It just kind of depends on where you are in the vicinity of the storm. And in the same way, the vicinity of where you find yourself with Merrick dictates, which side of that equation you're on. Either a victim or somebody who was spared that, that outcome and that, consequence of having come in contact with Merrick. So we wanted to paint a very different type of individual. I think back, and I love, classic Korean cinema where you have, and Asian cinema with movies like Hard Boiled and things like that. But I Saw the Devil is a big influence, as far as, Merrick. You have a classic tale that's flipped on its head. And with Merrick, you have a classic tale that's, in its own ways, it's flipped on its head, but, it still adheres to some of the things that you've come to expect in a movie about an assassin. You have to have some death. You have to have some carnage. But where I think Merrick is different is you have carnage with meaning. You have carnage that is meant to be examined. You have carnage that has a consequence. I think movies like Clint Eastwood's, I think it was his last Western, Unforgiven. The violence that was in William Munn, I think his name was William Money, the main character. The violence that was within him was sort of suppressed and was dormant. The guy had a wife. He was an unsuccessful pig farmer. Some of the pigs got sick. He needed to make money, and he tried to return to, the old way when he was, presented with an opportunity to make some money by, killing some people that needed killing. He rationalized to begin with. But then you see, certain slices of humanity, everything from Morgan Freeman's character who had killed people, that was William Money's partner, Ned, that Morgan Freeman played, he couldn't pull the trigger. He couldn't pull the trigger. And I think a lot of men who have seen violence, particularly men who have seen violence, they react differently. You may have killed 100 men, but you can't kill the 101st man. There's something that affects you. There's something, a switch goes off. By the same token, that same switch went off in William Money in Unforgiven, and he killed everybody. So I like those parallels that are drawn. I love films to where everything is deliberate and it's meaningful and it's thoughtful. And I want to bring that out with Merrick. So, we started the beginning of this journey as filmmakers and writers and people who wanted to create. It's funny. There's guys on the weekend that play golf. And we're just like that, only on the weekend we get together to make films. And we still care about the craft of film. We care about the art of making films. And I think there's a difference between a film and a movie. And, with Merrick, we're leaning, more so towards film. Films linger. Movies, I think you enjoy, you remember, but films tend to linger. And, that's just my opinion. So, we're going on this journey.